Hey, what is going on, guys? My name's Jonathan, and this is my first ever ServiceNow video on this YouTube channel. I really wanted to challenge myself to build something within ServiceNow. It'll be very basic for this video, and I'm hoping to build upon off of what we're building today in future videos. So what we're going to be building is a new form, and this form will allow users to request access to a ServiceNow group. And my plan is to make it automated where we'll automatically add the user to the group. I am going to create a task and I'm going to assign it to a new group that I'm going to create in this demo called IT automation. And no users will be in this group. It's really just to document that the action was done. And I think it's good practice with anything that's automated within ServiceNow to create a task assigned to an automated group so that way it's documented and tracked and easy to find for reference. So without further ado, let's get right into it. So the first thing, of course, when you're creating a new catalog item is you want to search for maintain items. So I'm going to click on that. Then I'm going to click on new to make the new catalog item. And we're going to call this add user to group. And might as well put it for the short description too. We're going to click on Control S to save. I am using a plugin called SN Utils, which I highly recommend for any ServiceNow developers out there, as it gives you access to a bunch of shortcuts and other useful tools. So for example, if I didn't have it, I would have to right click and click save. But because I have it, I'm able to just simply click Control S to save it. And now I'm going to go to variables and I'm going to make a requested for field. Of course, in your company instance, it's always better to have a variable set for requested for because chances are you're going to be reusing that many times throughout many different catalog items. So I'm going to click on new for variables. This is a PDI, so I do have to make it from scratch. And this is going to be called requested for, and this is going to be a reference to the sys user table, which is of course where all the users are stored in ServiceNow. So let me find that. It's right there. Then we want to make sure that active is set to true so that we're only able to select active users. And we're going to make it mandatory as well as set an order. I'm going to put 100 as this is going to be the first field that will be displayed on the form. And let's click on submit to register this new field and automatically return back to the catalog item. I'm going to create one more field, which will be very similar, except it's going to be a reference to the groups table, as this is going to allow users to select a group that they need to be added to. So let's call this required group. And this is going to be very similar, so I'm going to make it mandatory. It is going to be a reference, except this time it's going to be a reference to the sys user group table, which is the name of the table in ServiceNow where groups are stored. And we are going to make this active to only allow groups that are active to be selected. And of course, let's make this 200 as to make sure that this displays underneath the other field we created, which is the requested for. So that's created. And now let's just quickly add a catalog and a category to it. I'm going to click service catalog. And for the category, let's select, these are all out of the box ones that were generated with my PDI. So let's do services in this case. And I'm going to save that. One thing we want to make sure to add this to the taxonomy, which is just a fancy word for menu on the Employee Service Center portal. So I believe if I click on assign topics, a topic is part of the taxonomy. So let me click add. And before I do that, I'm going to go to the portal, the Employee Service Center portal, and just to show you that this is all defined as the taxonomy. So all I'm doing is I'm adding it to a topic, which a topic can be classified as one of these clickable titles that you see here. So we're going to add it to technology service, and let's add it to IT for IT, and we're going to put it under employee. Click OK, and it should automatically be there without saving because I added it to from a related list, which it is. Okay, so now I'm just going to click on a refresh, and I'm looking at it. I can probably just search it as well, which should make things a lot easier, which it is. It's right here because we added it to the taxonomy, so it actually just shows up on the portal. And so this is the form we just created. And if I click on requested for, of course, it shows all the users that are active within ServiceNow, and similarly for the groups. I'm also going to change in their portal settings, let's change it under submit, just make it a little bit more cleaner, because we see we have save as draft order now. So now if I refresh, I just have submit, which makes more sense to submit the form. So the next step now is to create a flow, and a flow is going to contain all the logic to essentially do stuff. And we're going to link this flow to this catalog item. So when someone clicks on submit, it's going to trigger the flow that we're going to create, and it's going to trigger all the logic that we're going to add to it. And right before we do that, I'm going to create a new group called IT automation, because in the flow we're going to define a step that creates a task assigned to IT automation, just to make sure that it was successfully completed. So now I'm going to go to new to make the new group, IT automation. Always good practice to add a description. This group is to keep track of automated tasks. There we go. And then I'm going to click on submit. So now the group is or should be created. So now if I go to IT automation, yes we do. Always a good tip to put a star, so that way it becomes contains within the filter criteria. So I'm going to go to Flow Designer, aka we are in Washington, so now it's called Workflow Studio. I'm really excited to really deep dive into this. And then we're going to go to New, and we're going to go to New Flow to create a new flow. And I do notice that it defaults to the old UI. I don't know if it's because, that needs to be fixed, or if it's a bug, or maybe that's expected behavior. This is a PDI. My company currently doesn't have Washington, but we do plan on upgrading soon. But we do have to click on create new and then flow again. But this is the old UI. So this is what you would see in Vancouver and precedent versions as well. So the flow name is going to be called, well, of course, precedent versions up to, before this, I believe there was Workflow Designer, which is like the predecessor to Flow Designer. So I can't remember the version that Flow Designer was officially released in ServiceNow, but normally you would see this type of UI within your instance. Most ServiceNow instances would have a version that has Flow Designer to this date. So we're going to call this flow automate group requests. And one tip is to make sure to change this to system user. By default, it is user who initiates session, which means it will run the flow as the user, which is always better to run it as the system, in my opinion, depending on what you're doing. But in general, system user is the way to go. So we're going to do that, and then we're going to click on submit. So now we want to make the trigger from a submission of a catalog item. So the keyword for that is, if I just search for catalog, yes it is, so service catalog is the one. So now we define that as the trigger, but I see it had an issue parsing it. Let me just delete that and add it again. So service catalog, and click on there. There we go. And then I'm going to click on done. And then we're going to get the catalog variables. So we're going to get the two fields that we created, requested for and required group. And so let's make sure to link it to our catalog item, add user to group. So these are the two fields that we want right here. And again, I'm doing this on the spot, so it is possible I make a mistake doing this, but I'm going to try to keep this very simple. And what we want to do is the user that's selected, we want to add it to the group. So to do that, I'm thinking if we go to the groups table within ServiceNow, and I'm going to click on any group, we can see that group members. So if you were to manually add a user to a group, you would do it here. So I'd click on edit and I would add the user and now the users in the group. So ideally this table that's linked to the sysuser group, we want to add the user to the table that's on this related list. So if I double click, which is a shortcut in SNUtils that shows you the actual table internal name, we can see that sysuser group, which as we know is the groups table, but we can actually see sysuser gr member, which is probably the table that we want to add the user to. Because if I do .list, handy shortcut, to see all the records in this table, we can see that the user, for example, Arin Ubhi, I love his name by the way, is associated with the group ITSM. So this is the how it relates users to groups within ServiceNow. So what we need to do is we want to create a new record, and ServiceNow core create record, and it is called sysuser group is our table. The group that we want to add is the group that is selected on the form, which is the required groups field. And we're getting that from our first steps, so it should be this. So we want to set the group to required group, which should be a reference. So this should be fine. It should be a reference because this is going to be a reference which opens this table or this record on this table. So just dragging it in like that will give us the sysID. And then the next thing we want to add the user as well. So same thing, requested for. This should give us the sysID because it's a reference. A user points to the sysuser table. If you ever want other fields, you can always .walk and see all the fields on this table. And what's kind of crazy, that's pretty much it for the very bare minimum. There's so many other things you can do, but let's just test it, and I'm going to activate it. Actually, I forgot to create the task, so let me do that as well quickly. Let me do it right here. So we're going to do action create, I think it's catalog task, right? Yeah. Create catalog tasks. So add user to group. Actually, what I could do to group, and then if you want to display this dynamic, instead of user, we can select requested for and actually .walk. This is a great use case to show this functionality. .walk to the name. So add, this will take the name of the user on the task, and then we can do the same for the name of the group. So now if I click on required group name, so now it's going to be add the selected user's name to the selected group's name. And so that's going to be for the short description. And we're not going to wait for completion because it's an automated task. And I'm going to also, I might as well put the same thing for the description. Let's put the, let's see. I'm not going to touch the state for now. Let's just leave it like that. So it's going to create the task. I am going to put the assignment group to IT automation that we just did. And then once it does the step to add the user to the group, we are then going to update the record, which is the created task record. So we're going to drag and drop this here, and we are then going to, this is now state close complete. And that should be efficient once the task is completed. Sufficient for a first test. So let's activate the flow that we just created. Oh, we have an error. Perfect. Let's see. Oh, I forgot to drag the requested item record. So this is the RITM for short. And when you submit a request, it's going to create an RITM, and tasks will be linked underneath the RITM. So for example, if you have like 5 different tasks, the parent will be the RITM. So it's easy to see relationships between tasks linked to which requested items, for example. So now that that's done, let me minimize this. And let's try to click activate again. And while that's going, another error. And of course I did the same mistake, so let me drag and drop the requested item. Okay, let me just double check to make sure I didn't do the same for the other. This one shouldn't, it's just updating or creating records, so it should be fine. Okay, so let's activate that. And then once that activates, we're going to link it to our catalog item. So I need to actually go back to maintain items. So let me go here and then start group. And I can see, I just noticed add/remove users from group. So it's possible the PDI already has a form out of the box. It's always good when you're developing anything to take the time to check if ServiceNow already has it out of the box. But it's possible that your organization doesn't have it, as this is a PDI. So this just might be a preset of things that's deployed with it. But this is like a good example to always double check if something's already there before doing it. So we're going to click back on our catalog item. And then I want to go under process engine, and this is where we're going to link the flow that we just created to it. Automate group requests, and then let's save it. So now this catalog item is associated with our flow. So what should happen is when we make a request, so let's add Abdel Tutor. I love his name. Let's do app engine admins. And now before I do that, I just want to see I'm going to go to the sys user table because I want to double check which actually I can check here. What we could do is Abdil. Oh my goodness, let's see if my spelling is completely off. So let me get rid of the D and then tutor, Abdil Tuta. So we can currently see that he's actually part of no groups, and we can further confirm that by going to the users table, and he's the first one there. And we can see he has no groups associated with him. But now, if I click on submit, it should close right away. I click on that. So the RITM is created. So it didn't close right away. So let's see if I go to the RITM, like so. We can click on our task that's automated. We can see, okay, so it added the name and the name of the group, well, the name of the user and name of the group dynamically. And close complete was open. It did close it. And so it closed the task automatically. So and if I go to the RITM, we can see that the RITM is still open. So that's one improvement that we can do. However, if I refresh, it added the user. So now the Abdel tutor is associated with App Engine admin. So that did work. And we're going to build upon this further in another video if you guys enjoyed this. There's a few things that we can do. This is just a really quick base to get things working. Like we can investigate why is the RITM, why is the state still open, for example. So what I could actually test. So that's one thing, maybe one task to add is you want to update the RITM record as well for it to close. But sometimes it could be automatic depending on the task. So I might investigate this further before actually adding this step. Because normally when all the tasks are closed, it should close the RITM by default. So I may have missed something. So it's always good to take a step back and maybe analyze first if you really need to add that extra action to close the RITM. So I'll investigate that. Another thing to improve is you could add error handling. This is very simple, so there shouldn't be an error with this. But imagine that it created an automated task. Then there was an error between the automation. And then because there's an error, it wouldn't continue. So it wouldn't automatically close the task. So a good practice could be, for example, to update the task to close incomplete in error handling, which triggers when there's an error, to close incomplete here, and maybe reassign it to a group with that's not an automated group, like a group with real people, so that they can manually intervene and see what the issue is. So that way errors aren't lost and errors are still documented and reassigned accordingly. And another use case could be to remove a group from a user. So the check, maybe make a new field, and that allows the user to click add or remove, and then it does that accordingly. So there's a bunch of directions we can go, a bunch of improvements. This is just a really quick bare bones to get things going, get you guys started. I hope you learned something from this video. I do plan on posting more, and I'm really, really excited for Washington. So I think I'm also gonna make more videos, more focused on Washington features as well. But if there's any use cases you want to see me add further and further, I can make a second part to this video as well. Thank you guys so much for watching. I wish you guys a great night, a great day, a great morning wherever you are located in this world. And we'll talk soon. See you guys. Take care. Bye bye.